Hello, Merry Christmas. We're almost there. We are almost coming to the day where we celebrate our Savior Jesus Christ. Yes, it's an interesting time, and not only interesting, it's a very important time for us because we remember the one who died for our sins, and this is a good time. And welcome to Book Talk. This is Anthony Morore, your host, and I've got some good news. The good news is that there's a book coming, and this book is important to all of us. This book is talking about writing and publishing a book. We are in the making of it. That's the cover. I hope you can see it well. And we've got people who are contributing to this book. Those are some of them. And today we have with us just a name there, Sylvia Worsham. She's a contributor in this book, and it's a wonderful time. So, in this episode, we are going to talk about this forthcoming book, and we are going to, uh, have a good time. So, let's go into the episode and have a great time. Here we go, and meet. Hello, Sylvia.
Hey, Anthony, how are you? Good
I'm
morning.
fine. How about you?
Good, good. I know it's morning in Texas, but it's evening or afternoon in Greece. So I'm excited to be here with you.
And I'm excited to have you here on this episode. It's a wonderful thing to get connected and get to do things, even though we are at quite a distance. And it's quite a distance.
To
The
say
other
the
way.
least, yes.
Yeah. So we've been here with you before, although we didn't talk about this thing that is forthcoming, or the beautiful things that are ahead of us. But for a start, maybe you can introduce yourself to someone who's not had you or seen you before. Who is Sylvia?
Well, I am a friend of Anthony's, obviously. I've become a friend over the past couple of months. And I'm Sylvia Worsham. I'm based out of Austin, Texas. I am a certified speaker, coach, and trainer with the John Maxwell team, who's built her own business here in Austin. And just very recently, over the last year or so, became a first time author of my book, Journey to Me Trust the Wisdom of Change. And it has been an extraordinary journey because I was meant to be an author all along, but for a long time I put off the prompting from God to write my book out of fear of failing. I was a perfectionist, a recovering perfectionist, that is, and a very high achiever who was highly motivated by fear for a long time until I nearly died. And then it kind of started to shift my life a little bit around. And I left corporate America. I used to work in sales for the pharmaceutical giant Pfizer. And then I became a stay at home parent. And during that transition, that's when God chiseled away some of these unwanted elements and started to kind of whisper in my ear of like, you need to write your book. It's time, trust me. And when the pandemic hit in Austin, Texas in 2020, that prompting got very, very strong. And I just started putting pencil to paper and in my journaling practice, the book Journey to Me, Trust the Wisdom of Change was born. And from that point on, it's been such a joyous ride because I am just a lot more joyful than I once was before. And I've been writing a lot this past year. I've contributed to other books, two other books. As a matter of fact, this will be my third collaborative process with
Mhm.
you. And I'm so excited. So thank you for
Wonderful.
allowing me to introduce myself.
You're most welcome, and thank you for introducing yourself in such a beautiful way. Now, something happens to your video image, but anyway, we are hearing you well and we are seeing you, but it's a bit blurred. But we'll go with that because even with a blurred image, you still look beautiful.
Thank you.
Now, I had something interesting that you mentioned in the introduction, and maybe you can share with us a little bit more. I didn't know that fear can kill you.
Can kill you?
Yeah.
Well, it it potentially could because your stress levels can get really, really high and you can make choices that don't necessarily align to that
Mm,
beautiful soul of yours, right?
yeah.
It could be a super strong motivator to escape your pain
Mm,
and to pour yourself so much into work where you're working 50 to 60-hour work weeks and your stress levels through the roof and you don't pay attention to your health.
mm,
Like I didn't, I kind of ignored it.
mm-hmm,
And then I ended up in the hospital
mm,
nearly dying. So
mm-hmm.
it's gonna wake you up really fast. And then you're
Yeah.
gonna look at fear and say, it may not be such a good thing to be motivated by fear. Maybe, let's reflect on what got me here and
Uh-huh.
let's try to balance it out. Because
Mm,
fear can be good in some instances. We know when it's good, like when you're facing up like a lion that's chasing you, then fear is really adequate. Or you're about to step off a cliff, yeah, fear is kind of adequate. But when you are constantly motivated as an individual by fear,
mm,
that's not necessarily a good thing because you're projecting that into your environment. And if you're a mom like I am, I'm a mom to an 8-year old and to a 17-year old, then that's going to be a problem because then
mm,
your kids are going to model that. They're going to think that that's normal
mm-hmm,
because their subconscious mind is going to take that as a normal thing. And I'm grateful for that near death experience. And I'm grateful that I was who I was
mm.
because being such a stubborn child of God, I likely needed that awakening in that way to wake
Okay.
me up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, and now we are writing a book together, and we both have now is also an interesting thing that we wrote during the pandemic. You wrote during the pandemic, and my first book was also written during the pandemic. Uh,
Another similarity, Anthony. We're finding this out as we talk.
Yes, there's so many things that we have in similar. In fact, I have observed we could be sharing them more much in the future, even as we get to interact more. Now, since we are becoming partners in of a kind, so we need to be there for a longer time together. And going back to fear, there's someone who has a story, or someone who's imagining of writing a book. He's been imagining of writing a book, but he's fearful, maybe
Mhm.
fearful of how the other people are going to look at him, fearful of suppose he writes and he doesn't succeed, fearful of many things. And what would you say to that person?
I was once you. I
Mm-hmm.
understand your journey. But I also understand the joy because I've done it and I've
Mm-hmm.
actually put pen, to paper and actually produced a book. I can tell you that there's so much joy waiting for you on the other side that you if that's what you've been wanting all this time, this is what you need to do. If your soul is pulling you to act, listen to your soul. Your soul knows more than your mind. Your
Mm.
mind will try to stop you because
Yes.
that's where your fear resides. Uh,
Uh-huh.
so it's your soul. If your soul is pulling you, then that's what you're meant to do. Because when you're born with certain gifts inside of you,
Mm-hmm.
and you're born perfect in His image, in God's image.
Mm-hmm.
And once you see yourself the way He sees you, blessed and wise and worthy of writing that book, once you actually see yourself that way, there's no turning back. And the joy and the abundance you receive from writing your book is it's immeasurable. There's no price you can put on that.
Oh yeah, sure. It's quite a great thing to just touch your book in your hands.
Oh, it's the most amazing feeling. You're like, wow.
Amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why we are encouraging people to write. Write your book. Write your book. Just take a pen and paper and start scribbling anything that comes to mind. And now with technology, you just take your computer and type something there. Whatever comes, someone advised me that way. And maybe
Yeah.
it's I did. And we all do differently. And this is why. in this book, I don't just give my story. I invite other authors to come and tell us their story because
Mhm.
my way of writing could be different from their way of writing. And once you read the book, you're going to pick different ideas from different authors. So you can have different ideas. And maybe one of the ideas will just inspire you to just go at it right now and write your
Mhm.
book.
And write your book.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's wonderful. I wish I had a book like the one you and I are producing, before I even started my journey. It would have made things easier to be able to write it down, like read it and
Mm-hmm.
understand, oh, this is awesome. What I ended up doing was interviewing a bunch of authors. Now that takes a lot of time because you have to do schedules and different elements of it. And this was done during the pandemic when my 5 year old, was needing to do online classes, which meant that I became her kindergarten teacher in
Mm-hmm.
collaboration with her kindergarten teacher on the other side of the screen. And so that's a lot of time that
Mm-hmm.
that was required of me to do the research. But this book is going to give first time authors a really good view of the processes that each of us took, and then whatever their soul is attracted to,
Mm-hmm.
that's what you need to really like pay attention to and write down as your process, because it's giving you the inner wisdom, is giving you the answers instead of you having to overthink everything.
Yeah, sure, exactly. And this is why we are reminding you to get the book once it's out. There is going to come a pre-order link sometime
Mhm.
very soon. So keep checking also in the description of this video because it could change anytime to provide a link to go and pre-order the book. Get it as quickly as possible because it's going to come at a very reasonable price at first before we go to the higher prices. Yeah, and before that happens, in the description there is a link to the LinkedIn profile of Sylvia Worsham. Go and follow, go and connect with Sylvia for some insight and also to check on her books because if you're going to be a writer, you need to be a reader. So if you've not been reading, then you better start reading. Have you read my book? Maybe not. If you've not read my book, go get it. And also go get Sylvia's book and see the way people write, and then you're going to know which way you're going to follow. Definitely, it's going to be your own way, but it's good to have some ideas. What would you say to that, Sylvia?
You know what? I'm in
Mhm.
total agreement with you, because to create the identity of an author, because that's in essence what you're attempting to do. You're becoming an author. So to become an author, you need to start hanging out with authors and understanding their processes. And to become them, you observe them in interviews like these. You interview them and you ask them questions. Ask the questions of people that have gone before you is really a very wise thing to follow. And it's one of the tips I offered in my chapter in this book, is
Mhm.
to ask questions of those before that have gone before you. And because you do need to start stepping into that space, and to do that, your mind needs to start understanding that that's your vision, and you need to start incorporating these new habits in your life of reading, like you had stated earlier. If you're going to become a writer, you're going to become an author, you need to start reading books, because in reading you start to understand the different styles. And at
Mhm.
first, when you're a first time author, you don't I know for me, I didn't even know what style I was going to write in.
Mhm.
Was it going to be chronological? What was I going to write about? I mean, because I think that's a lot of things that block people initially from writing their book. They have the idea, they just don't know how to go about in in developing that idea into a
Mhm.
book. And that's why this book of ours is so important for you to get, because it will give you a first eyes view of all these things that you're feeling currently. You're probably going to relate to a lot of these authors talking about the same concepts of like being afraid of failing and being this perfectionist, and how do you get past those roadblocks first to get to the actual action of putting your book together.
Mhm.
Because that comes way later. The
Yeah.
organization of a book comes way, way later than I think most people think, "Oh, it's at the beginning." No, 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 no. If you're when you're a perfectionist, you think it's at the beginning, like I
Hmm.
did, and then you can actually block your perfectionism can block you. So, one of the other tips I shared was just to kind of like for coming attractions is to carry a journal with you everywhere because sometimes the downloads, those ideas that come from your higher source of wisdom, in my case, it's God, will come at random times.
Yeah.
And I highly suggest you carry around a journal. And it doesn't have to be a big one. Like I'll share with you like what I carried around with something as small as this in my purse, in my book, in my car, wherever I'm at, because the downloads come and you got to be ready to like just jot it down quickly. And that way you don't have to go back and say, and spend like 2 hours trying to think back. What was that download? Well, you have it on paper now.
Hmm.
And so that's why it's important to step into that identity. You must start to become an author like us. Like, what does that look like? How do they
Yeah.
carry their body, their physiology? How do they speak? What do they read? Those are the items you need to look at.
Yeah, sure. And everything that you said there is true. I agree with you. Now, like mentioning connecting with other authors is interesting. It wasn't in my mind when this book came into being, but it's George, one of the authors, saw what I was sharing on social media, specifically on TikTok. We found each other with George on TikTok, and
Mhm.
George saw the videos that I was sharing, encouraging people during the pandemic, telling them this is gonna be over. Just keep there, keep holding on. And then George asked me, "Hey, Anthony, have you written a book?" And then I said. I came to find out that he's an author too. He told me, I have authored books, and you need to have a book. You ought to have a book, and
Mhm.
you should do it as quickly as possible.
It's like, okay, well, that's a good idea.
And then when you're mentioning about God, because we talk about God, we are approaching Christmas, and everybody's all over the world celebrate Christmas. That's celebrating Christ, and we talk about God a lot. Now, God has his way of doing things. George has authored some tens of books, maybe 30 or 40.
Wow.
At the same time, still on TikTok, we got connected with one other person who's authored 60 books
Wow.
at the same time.
Wow.
His name is Jonas. So he's been here. He's gonna come here because he's also contributing to this book, and he's gonna share a lot of the things that he's been through and how to write. So by being connected with George and Jonas, my book became a reality. So I agree with you on the issue of connecting with authors. You need to connect with other authors. And this is why we are doing this. So if you are there listening, please go and connect with Sylvia on LinkedIn. I'm posting her link there
And you know
somewhere.
what? For those that do connect with me, I wouldn't mind you calling me and asking me questions. I
Hmm.
called so many authors that I knew in person first. You have an inner circle, and within that inner circle, sometimes you do have authors within that. And it's always important to kind of test those questions on people that you know first. But I'm offering my services even if you don't know me and you want to reach out to me in person, um, you can test the questions out on me and I can guide you on what questions were really informative for me in terms of what gave me the most answers that I was seeking uh, from from that point of view. So you can always, when you connect with LinkedIn, we could always Zoom or do anything like this where you can just sit there and ask me anything you want. I'm offering my services as a service to humanity. I don't know who you are. You don't know who I am, but I've been where you're at. And I know that you have this enormous light inside of you that needs to shine very brightly for humanity's sake. So I'm offering that as an added service. Aside from connecting with me, connect with me, let's Zoom, and you can ask me questions and get as many answers as you need.
Wow, wow. Thank you very much, Sylvia. It's good to offer such a service to someone who's interested in writing. And again, I point that even to my own experience. When I got connected on TikTok to Jonas, and I thought, wow, I need to have someone look at this manuscript. I was not so sure whether Jonas could do it.
Yeah. Being as busy as he is,
Yeah,
I would
being
be
as
like,
big as he
wow, because
is.
that guy's busy.
And I know you just, I mean, even though you can't just accept to read, to go through everything, because maybe it's not in your something that you identify with.
Hmm.
Even though we are offering the services, maybe you're so busy, or maybe it's not something that you identify with, so you wouldn't want to read much into that. And I know you, the listener or the viewer, understands what I mean. There could be an area that you don't want to read anything about. Even with an author, there are areas that they may not be into. So I can't just say yes to everything, but maybe just ask.
Just ask. Yeah.
Ask.
The answer will always be no until you ask, right?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. And you can never get an answer to a prayer that you haven't prayed.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
Very
So
much.
just ask. And um, yes, this has been an introduction to the book that is coming very soon. This is just a rough idea. It's a cover. It's a it's a sample of the book. It's gonna look like that. So look out for it, and get yourself a copy. Sylvia will be there, and many other authors will be there, and I'll be there definitely. Okay. So that's about it. Remember to go and follow Sylvia on LinkedIn, and stay tuned for the pre-order link coming soon, very soon. And yes, let's keep writing, and let's keep inspiring the world. Let's keep giving hope to the world through our words. That's why we are here, to encourage one another, uplift one another. Just go and do it. But before we go, Sylvia would like you to summarize this thing, and then we will be out of here.
Guys, writing a book isn't as hard as your mind is telling you it is. And really, the best advice I can give you is to get out of your own way. Get out of your own way. Stop thinking about it and just start doing. Do what your soul is pulling you to do because you have an enormous gift inside of you, and the world is just waiting to hear from you. So, best of luck to you. Please reach out to any one of us. We'd be more than happy to guide you through this process. And we're here for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sylvia, and thank you to all the listeners and the viewers. Don't get out, don't get on your way. Get out of your way and go and write your book. So that's about it for today. And yes, your host, Anthony Morore, and Sylvia Worsham, my co author, we are saying bye for now.
Bye bye.
It's been such an honor having you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthony. My honor too.
Bye.
Bye bye.